Hello friends, it's Daryl. How you doing today? We're going to be doing a tie rod end on a 2009 Mercury Mariner. This particular one is a hybrid, but that doesn't really matter. All the Escapes, Mariners, hybrids, or gas engine are going to be all the same from 2005 through 2012 at least. A very easy, straightforward job. There are a couple different part numbers depending on date of manufacture. Wheel's been removed. I've got it up on a jack, and we have two jack stands back there supporting the vehicle as well in case something happens to the jack. Here's the tie rod end. You can feel and hear how loose it is. It's really actually pretty loose. You can actually wiggle the knuckle back and forth when the tire's on there. We've sprayed the bottom of the nut with the PB Blaster. And really, I said this is the only sharp pieces we're going to be doing right here. The tie rod end, the nut, and the retaining ring and the threaded shaft. Now to make your life easier, you're going to want to break loose this jam nut back here on the shaft before you pop the end of the tie rod out of the knuckle. It makes it so much easier to get a hold of and release that way. 16/16 wrench onto the nut, straight up and down, and then tap it forward until it loosens the lock nut. And we hit it just a couple times and it loosened right up. You don't need to turn it back very far because you're going to be turning the bottom of it here to unscrew it, and it'll stay away from the lock nut. That's good, all good. We'll get the nut off the bottom of the tie rod end next. Now we're going to pound on this flat surface right here with a medium-sized handheld sledgehammer, and the tapping on that will set up a vibration in the metal to cause this tapered part where it's stuck in to loosen up, and then we'll be able to gently tap it up and out. And it worked so well I just barely touched it with the hammer. Didn't even really tap it, just got my bearing on where I was going to put the hammer at, and it popped right up and out. Pretty darn easy. Now we can just lift this out and over, and now we can unscrew the tie rod end. But we got to hold the back shaft with one hand with a secured tool so that doesn't spin. If the back shaft spins, you're going to lose track of the right number of revolutions to remove the tie rod end. Once we get it screwed on the exact number of turns, we can remove our locking wrench, push the ball joint down into the knuckle, start the threads on the bottom by hand, and then use the power wrench to draw it down tight. Make your final tightening with a socket wrench so that you can line up the holes on the castle nut, put the cotter pea through, round it over, and tap it down so it doesn't stick out. Last step, install your grease fitting, which you'll need a 7mm for. And don't over tighten it because it will break off if you over tighten it. And there is grease in it when it comes from the store, but I like to add one more squirt of grease into it just to make sure there's enough. You have to be careful, don't add too much, or those rubber bellows will expand and explode from the pressure of the extra grease when you turn. But one little squirt is enough. There we go. You can see the little bit of red sticking out the top. And we are done. Including the time it took to stop and film and get some tools I forgot. It took me just about an hour start to finish. If it's your first time doing it, it'll probably take you about the same. If I had everything all lined up and wasn't trying to film it, it could easily be done in half an hour. Here's all the tools you're going to need. You'll need a 15/16 wrench, or alternatively a pipe wrench, and possibly the hammer to remove the lock nut on the tie rod end shaft. Next, we'll need an 18mm deep socket, which we already have out, to remove the nut on the bottom that secures the tie rod end to the knuckle. After that, we'll use the hammer again. We'll pound on the side of the knuckle and then gently tap upward on the bottom of the tie rod end, and it'll pop the tie rod out. Now, we're going to secure the inner tie rod shaft with a locking wrench pointing preferably straight down so it's an easy position for you to remember. While monitoring that shaft to make sure it doesn't spin, you're going to grab a hold of the tie rod end with your hand and turn it until it falls off. Be sure to count the number of turns, full rotations. They'll start out facing downward. You're going to count full rotations, downward position again. This one took 13 3/4. Once you've removed that, we'll take the new tie rod end and screw it on, drop it down into place, start your castle nut on there, and then use your 15/16 wrench to tighten down the lock nut. Once the lock nut's secure, you can use your 18mm impact to tighten up the castle nut for your basic tightening. Then you'll use a ratchet handle or open end wrench 18mm to turn the castle nut just enough so that the holes in it line up with the castle cutouts. And you can put your cotter pin through and bend that over. 7mm socket or wrench to install the grease fitting on the top of the tie rod end. Grease gun to add 1 or 2 small pumps of grease to it just to make sure it was filled enough from the factory. And after that, you are good to go. The whole process, I say, shouldn't take more than an hour. You know, I really feel good when I can fix something myself and save some money. And it's also just not about the money always, it's a sense of accomplishment. And being able to do it on my own time without having to wait to get into a service garage to get it done. I used genuine Moog part on this. I use that for the other side too. It's been on there 2.5 years and it's as tight as can be. This is the one that I used, and this is going to be the one that most of the Escape Mariners use in all different engine varieties. See, this was like 28 bucks from my local auto parts store. You can't go wrong. It has a lifetime guarantee. If you don't want to get from your local auto parts store, or if you don't want to pay for the Moog quality products that are proudly made in the USA, I don't know if you noticed that or not. Moog has always been a leading brand name for front end suspension parts, but I'll put a link to the second one in here too. Detroit Axle makes decent quality parts at a really good price point. And if you can't afford or don't want to spring for the Moog, then go ahead and click on the Detroit Axle one and you'll get a part that will be a good fit as well. Not a lot of tools required, not a lot of really high skill required, more or less just a manual labor kind of, get it done kind of job. It's, I really appreciate you guys watching my channel and giving advice and comments and feedback on how I could have did it better or what they would have did differently or that it worked or didn't work for them. So feel free to comment and leave your feedback. And just know that I appreciate you all. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.